right, so our study today is going to be a little deep and maybe a little thought-provoking. Look into the future. In Revelation, we're told that things were revealed that must shortly come to pass. Shortly come to pass. Now, the book of Revelation was written approximately 2,000 years ago, so the idea of shortly might be a little bit relative. However, as applied to the book of Revelation, because the book of Revelation describes the history of the church through the seven churches and even the the 4 horsemen, and then it describes events that will take place in the last days. So, as far as the book is concerned, once we start seeing these things fulfilling, then we know that the end is near. Let's look at that in Revelation 1:1. That's where we start. It says it right there on the screen so you can kind of follow along. The revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him, speaking of John, to show unto his servants things which must shortly come to pass. God is revealing to us the future. Isn't that nice of him? Yes, so we don't have to go into the future in darkness. We don't have to be thinking, what's going to happen? What's going to take place? And how shall we prepare? In Matthew 24:3, he says, "And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming? And of the end of the world?" So the disciples were also concerned with the future. And I don't know if you're concerned about the future, but I am. When I see the things happening around us, whether God exists or not, I would still, even if I didn't believe in God, I would still be concerned about the future. In fact, there's a lot of people who don't believe in God that are concerned about the future. Yeah? Everything from governments. I mean, we just had the COP26 in Ireland, I believe it was, Glasgow. Yeah. And they met together, a lot of world leaders there, because they're concerned about the future of the earth. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in a few minutes. But many people are concerned about the future. And thank God we know what the future holds, because God has revealed it to us. Matthew 24:7, he gives us a few examples. Now, we're not going to go through all of Matthew 24. You can do that on your own later. But Jesus gives a lot of different signs and events that will tell us we're in the last days or at the end of the world, as the disciples asked. So Matthew 24:7, "For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom." One thing that's kind of interesting about this, kingdom against kingdom is kind of, kingdom is like, different countries. But nation against nation involves a little bit more of race or ethnicity, which is interesting because we're entering into a time period now where race and ethnicity is a big, dividing point right now. A lot of people are talking about this, well, your skin color is this or your skin color is that, and you're the bad guy. No, you're the bad guy. So you see a lot of animosity and tension between the races. And not just here in America, I'm talking about, globally as well. Even in China, you have this, it's, what is it, Hong Kong, or what's the other, Taiwan, yeah, and then the Japanese versus the Chinese. And so there's a lot of, this idea of one race is better than the other, and a lot of conflict among that, with that. And that even happens, Jesus said this would happen. Jesus said right here, nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines, pestilence, earthquakes in diverse places. So these are just some of the examples. A little bit more about what I wanted to focus on with Matthew 24, verse 24. And there shall arise false Christs. Now, I want you to think about, we've read this before, nothing new, but I want you to think about that. When I put it in bold letters like that, I just want you to make a mental note. There's false Christs, false prophets, and shall show signs and what? Wonders. Yeah? So signs and wonders. There's going to be miracles and all kinds of things happening. Insomuch that if it were possible, they shall, what's that word? Deceive. Okay, so make a mental note of deceive. The very elect. So deception is so fine-tuned in the last days that it may even deceive God's people, the very elect. That includes us. So we cannot be too confident in saying, oh, I'm not going to be deceived. I already know what the Bible says, or I already know what I believe. Be careful, because he who thinks he stands may indeed fall. He may deceive. So we have here false Christs, false prophets, working signs and wonders. This could be considered a religious movement, wouldn't you say, right? False Christs and false prophets. These are religious leaders showing signs and wonders, sort of miracles per se. So, and they will be deceiving. So just think about those things as we go on. Before we go to Revelation 13, which is what we're going to focus on here in a little bit, what does the beast symbolize in the book of Daniel and the book of Revelation? Well, it says there in Daniel 7:23. Thus he said, the fourth beast, which Daniel was having in visions, shall be a kingdom. Right, fourth kingdom. Remember, kingdom shall rise against kingdom, right? So there's going to be kingdoms warring against each other in the last days. I'm not going to study about Daniel 7 today, but I just wanted to remind us that when we read the book of Revelation, especially chapter 13, I'm going to turn there real quick just so I have my thumbs on it. If you want to do the same, please do. Revelation chapter 13. There's two beasts mentioned in Revelation 13. Do you remember who they are? Two specific beasts. And they both come out of different places. Do you remember that? Anybody? Out of the sea, okay, and out of the earth. So two beasts, one coming out of the sea first, and then the second one comes out of the earth a little bit later. And then the second one pays homage to the first one. So just some quick review there of Revelation 13. So Revelation 13 mentions two beasts which are, according to Daniel 7:23, what are the beasts? Kingdoms. Okay, so these are political powers, whether it's a president or a king or any kind of political organization. That's what the beasts represent. If we go to Daniel, we have a lion, we have a leopard. Do you remember the other one? There was the bear. The lion, the bear, then the leopard, and then the fourth beast that was kind of like a dragon, undescript. So the lion represented, do you remember? Who did the lion represent? No, the lion was a beast. The beast was a nation or a kingdom. Babylon, that's right. And then after Babylon, the bear, Medo-Persia, and then after that, the leopard represented Greece. Yes. And then the fourth one, which was, had 10 horns and all this, that was Rome. Yeah? All right, so then the fourth beast is mentioned in Revelation 13 as well. It says, and the beast rose out of the sea having, this is verse 1, 7 heads and 10 horns. So just connecting Daniel 7 with Daniel 13, just as a mental note there as well. And one of his heads had the name of blasphemy. So again, that's not my main focus or study today. However, I want you to understand just the basics here. We're talking about kingdoms that have led up from Babylon all the way to our present day. the last kingdom is the one that rises out of the earth, who had two horns like a lamb, but he speaks as a dragon. And that is there found in verse 11 and 12 as well. All right, moving on to Revelation 13, 11 through 12. I saw another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, spoke like a dragon, and he exercises all the authority of the what? The first beast, which was the one that came up out of the sea, as in the first part of Revelation 13. And he exercised the same authority of the first beast in his presence, and causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast. Now, we've established, just kind of quickly, the first beast, which was the same as the fourth beast in Daniel 7, as the Roman Empire. Now, once Rome fell, as far as the empire of Rome, it continued, in a sense, in the Holy Roman Empire, which then was in power for 1,260 years. Now, that's a whole other study. I think some of you might know this, but it started right around 538 A.D. This is when Rome fell, but yet the papacy took over. That's why it's called the Holy Roman Church. And then they continued ruling in Europe, even though it's split into 10 kingdoms. Remember that? When Rome fell, it split into 10 kingdoms. That's why the beast has 10 horns. It split into 10 kingdoms, and the Roman Church continued from Rome to bear rule over the nations of Europe, including Germany, Italy, Spain, Britain, and so on. Even the Nordic countries as well. So this power rules, but yet this next beast that came out of the earth helps this power to gain power again. It says he exercised all the authority of the first one, the Holy Roman Empire, and causes the earth and to worship the first beast, the Holy Roman Empire. Which is, when you think about it, that's very interesting that we're heading in that direction as we speak. Do you know that our president at the moment is Catholic? Now, I'm not saying that makes him, an enemy per se, but he does believe in the Holy Roman Empire as his head. So we have to be careful, and then he visits the Pope, on occasion. So we have to wonder, as the Pope rises to power and authority in the world, and the president is having meetings more and more with the Pope of the United States, then you have to think, are we entering a time when the second beast is causing the first beast to gain power in the world? Are they working together? We haven't seen it all happen yet. This is why I called the sermon a look into the future. Because a lot of things that are predicted in Revelation 13 have not yet come to pass. Let's go. He performs, Revelation 13 again, 13 through 14. He performs great signs. Remember, we were just reading in Matthew 24. That's why I wanted you to remember this. It's the same thing. They will perform great signs. It doesn't say wonders, but it's a similar language. So that even makes fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men and deceives. Remember, Jesus mentioned in Matthew 24, they would work signs and wonders insomuch that they would deceive the very elect, or could deceive the elect. Those who dwell on the earth by those signs, so he deceives them by those signs, which he was granted to do in the sight of the beast. So, now in Matthew 24, it mentioned false Christs and false prophets. Correct? Working signs and deceiving. And here in Revelation 13, it doesn't mention false Christs and false prophets, at least at this moment. It says there was the beasts, are now working signs and deceiving. So it's religious and political. You see, the kingdoms of the earth represent kingdoms and powers, not necessarily religious powers, but secular powers. So now we see a kind of a tie when we see the world joining church and state. When the world says we must make the laws of the church enforced by the laws of the state or the land, that's when we start seeing this conglomeration, the desolation of abomination take place in our land. We haven't seen that quite yet, but I can see that we're heading in that direction, at least by my observations. Let me know if you disagree later on. I'm more than happy to discuss that. Revelation 13:16, again, looking a little bit into the future, it says, it also forced, this is the second beast, all the people, great, small, rich, poor, free, and slave, to do what? To receive the mark, okay? On their right hand, or on their foreheads. We haven't seen that happen yet, but I believe it's around the corner. Revelation 13:15, and that no one may buy or sell. Now just think about that for a second, because we're going to talk about that a little bit more in detail later. But remember, buy or sell, make a mental note, except one who has the mark of or the name of the beast or the number of his name. So there's going to be a religious aspect joining with a political aspect, then enforcing laws that you have to do, otherwise you will not be able to buy or sell. And then it gets worse in Revelation 13:17. The beast should both speak and cause as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. Wow. So God, we're being warned here that the beast will cause all who do not receive the mark to first not be able to buy or sell, but eventually they will be killed, it says. And for what? For not worshiping. So again, it's right now, are we being forced to worship one thing or the other? Nobody's really being forced to worship. I think we're being groomed into not necessarily worshiping, but honoring or trusting the government or those in power, whether it's religious or political, to the point that we nearly worship them. Not as we worship God, but in the sense that we give too much faith. And I'm speaking about religious leaders as well. Don't put too much trust in man. The Bible warns about us, to us. Because if we do put too much trust in man, then we're kind of placing man above God. So we have to remember, always trust God more than man. As long as man is doing according to God, then no problem following. The problem is when they start telling us to worship some other thing or other person. All right. The sea beast of Revelation 13 and the fourth beast of Daniel 7 are the same kingdom. We talked about that a little bit earlier, Daniel 7:25. And he shall wear out the saints of the Most High and think to change what? Times and laws. All right, so just remember, this is just a little mental note here. This has already happened in the past. The Catholic Church as an organization has claimed that they have the authority to change God's laws. Have you ever read this? I've actually read it from their books. So they say, yes, we have the authority to change because God gave us the keys of heaven and hell and so on. That's what they believe. Whether it's sincerely or not, I don't know, but that's what they teach. What is the only commandment Because the law here refers to, I believe, to the 10 Commandments of God, the law of God, the ultimate moral law of God. What is the only commandment that deals with time? The fourth commandment, the Sabbath. If you look in the Catholic Catechism, the fourth commandment is not the fourth commandment. It's the third commandment. You know why? Anybody know? Anybody want to share? Which one is that? The images. Right. Thou shalt not make unto thyself any graven images or bow down to them. Because that's part of their practice, they had to remove the second commandment. And I actually heard them preaching. I heard a Catholic preacher say, oh yes, the fourth commandment, honor thy father and thy mother. And I thought, wait a minute, that's... so I started looking again. I just, this was years ago. I thought, no, that's not the fourth commandment. Why did he say that was the fourth commandment? And that's when I started learning a little bit more that the Catholic Church actually changed the law of God. They removed the second commandment, and then because they didn't like the prohibition of idols or images, which they have everywhere. I've been to their temples, by the way, and their churches in Europe, and they have a lot of images. Some of them are very beautiful, by the way, as far as the painting and the stained glass. It's very beautiful. However, it's not biblical. So they also changed the Sabbath commandment, the fourth commandment. They removed all the part about how it says, that God created the heavens and the earth and the seventh day and rested on the seventh. They removed that. It just says, remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Period. That's it. So they shrunk it down to exclude creation. And they don't even say the seventh day. They say, remember the Sabbath day. We'll read more about that in a little bit. So he shall wear out the saints of the Most High. This is talking about how he kills those or persecutes those that are against him. But we're going to see more and more of this taking place in the future. Let's take a closer look here at Revelation 13, 11, and 12. I thought this was very interesting. And he causes the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast. Now, I thought this was interesting because why is there a distinction between the two? There's the earth and those who dwell in it. Now, you can say, well, maybe that just means, the earth, as in all of the earth and all that dwell in it. That could be one of the interpretations. But when I compare it to current thinking, current philosophy, I think this verse starts making a little bit more sense to me. Again, this is just my thoughts. I'm more than happy to see what you think on it as well. Let's read a little bit about this concept, the earth and those who dwell in it. This is from, I don't know if you can see there in the little corner, it's a Facebook page that I found. It says, a day of rest for, can you see it? For the earth. It says, stay home, plant green, turn off. Okay. The day of rest for the earth. Let's read. Imagine if the whole world was as committed to saving the earth, as they are. By the way, Jesus came to save those who are lost. The 99, or the one lamb that got away, yes? Not the earth. The earth doesn't need saving in that sense. As they are overcoming, imagine if those were of the whole world, how many? The whole world, interesting. As committed to saving the earth as they were to overcoming COVID. No need for 4 weeks lockdowns. I don't know when this was written because it's been more like a year and a half lockdown in some places. No need for 4-week lockdowns and businesses having to close for good. This would be a, what does that say? 1 day a week commitment to shut down smokestacks around the globe to let the earth breathe and plant green. Does it ever make you wonder, is COVID forcing us to take the needed rest to refresh what? The earth's atmosphere. The earth, there's that word again. We need a day of rest each week, and so does the earth. Now look, I'm not, I've mentioned before, I'm not against, depolluting the earth. I don't like pollution any more than anybody else. I don't like smokestacks. I don't like trash everywhere. So I'm not against this idea of cleaning up the earth as best we can. Not against that. I think that's a good idea. But you see how they're starting to confuse and join this idea of everyone needs to do this for the sake of the earth. It's just interesting. Let's read on. You'll see why I'm a little concerned with this philosophy and where it may lead. It says, and this is, again, I don't know if they're religious or not. This is just a website. It says Earth Ministry, different website. It says, and it's in Washington, D.C., by the way. Washington Interfaith Power and Light, it's called. So again, what's in Washington, D.C.? The seat of political power of this country. So, you have to wonder what's going on there. God instructed Moses, this writer, Sherry Golden writes, this was in 2008, you are to keep the Sabbath. Work may be done for 6 days, but on the seventh day there is a Sabbath of solemn abstinence from work. God has given us a template for truly abundant life, and it includes the Sabbath. So far, so good. Can anybody agree with that? I think I can. Right? God has given us a template for truly abundant life, includes the Sabbath. No problem. I think that's true. In a very real sense, the Sabbath is a memorial to creation. Now, hold on a second. We're starting to diverge a little bit, aren't we? What does the Bible say about the Sabbath? We can turn there in Exodus 20, but verse 8, it's a memorial to the Creator, not creation. The Creator is who made the heavens and the earth in 6 days and rested on the seventh day. But see, they're cleverly trying to remove God from the Sabbath and adding just the earth, creation. In fact, in Romans, it talks about they will worship the creature more than the Creator. That's in Romans. I believe it's chapter 1. She goes on to say, by faith we acknowledge ourselves as part of the whole creation, intricately, delicately, and beautifully connected to all of life and to the earth itself. That sounds good on paper, but Jesus said, I am the vine, you are the branches. Abide in me and I in you, and you will give fruit. We are connected not to the earth, but to Christ, the creator of the earth. Again, she's removing Christ, removing the creator from the Sabbath. A little dangerous. So that the well-being of this planet is a reflection of the well-being of our souls. I kind of agree with that. I think the well-being of our souls could indeed be reflected on the well-being of the planet. If we are honoring God and worshiping the Creator and following His commandments, then the whole earth benefits, right? The animals. There won't be as much killing and, disease and so on because we'll be following God. So I agree to a point. But she puts it kind of backwards. She says the well-being of this planet is a reflection of the well-being of our souls. So again, you see how the Bible says they will deceive. The deception is not something that comes when let me illustrate this way. When someone makes a $100 bill to pass off for the real, do they just take a piece of paper, cut it out with scissors, draw with like black Sharpie, $100, please, and then go to the store and try to cash it in? What do? They try to make it look as close as possible to the real thing. That is deception. And that's what Satan is good at. And that's why some of these things, she won awards for this sermon, by the way. I looked it up later. That's the difficulty here. If you don't know the Bible, this can sound good on the surface. Oh, it's a Sabbath. Yes, God gave it to us. Yes, we're all connected to the earth. Yes, a memorial to creation. Yes. Well, they got to be careful. Now, let's see if this diverges even further. You tell me. I urge you, this is the same lady, Sherry Golden, I urge you to take this slow Sunday challenge. For 2 whole months, keep the Sabbath. Okay. If you keep the Sabbath for just a few, wait a minute. Now we're really diverging. Okay, first you started kind of confusing the Creator with the creation. Okay, I can kind of let that go maybe. Maybe a slip of the tongue. But this is unbiblical. There is no command in the Bible anywhere, New or Old Testament, that says that Sunday is the Sabbath. It does not say, but here she says, if you keep the Sabbath just for a few Sundays, you'll never go back. When I first really keeping the Sabbath, started keeping the Sabbath, boy, it's just funny because they really say it with such sincerity. I was surprised and delighted by the freedom I felt waking up on Sunday morning, not having planned my whole day in advance. And then she even goes the next step and just puts Saturday in there as a passing thought. Saturday nights started to feel like the last day of school before summer vacation. Interesting. She missed the whole point. Apparently, I don't know if this lady's a Bible scholar. I have no idea. But she mentions Saturday, which in Spanish is sábado. The actual word Sabbath is named in 95 languages around the globe. The seventh day is called Sabbath of some kind, a rest day, a day of rest, and so on. She completely ignores that and calls Sunday the Sabbath. Again, I don't know if she did this on purpose. I don't know if she's understanding what she's writing. That's between her and God. I cannot judge her. I can't. But I can judge what she's writing according to Scripture. And according to Scripture, what she's writing is incorrect. It is false. It may look real, it may sound good, but it is wrong. It is error. She goes on to say, most of us can rest on Sunday and are resting on Sunday. I mean, she's really hammering that Sunday down. Will decrease the workloads of those who have no choice but working on Sunday. So she says, she recommends, don't buy anything on Sunday. Does that sound familiar? Revelation 13, those who receive the mark of the beast will not be able to buy or sell on whatever that day is, whatever that mark is. Of course, we understand and know as we study deeper that Sunday laws will come in the future. Don't balance your checkbook. Don't clean the house. Don't plan anything. Enjoy your family and friends. Take a walk, play, laugh, daydream, wander, read, rest, and pray. So it's not just a secular day, it's a spiritual day. Sunday. And what's the name of the organization? Earth Ministry. Revelation 13 causes the earth and all that dwell in them to receive this mark. It's something to do with it. If we all take and keep the slow Sunday challenge, we will automatically cut energy use, carbon emissions, destruction of the ozone layer by 14%. We will decrease water pollution and solid waste. We will slow down our destruction of the garden. The Garden of Eden has been gone a long time by the way. Remember what happened when Adam and Eve sinned? They were cast out of the garden. There was an angel placed at the gate of the garden with a flaming sword. And then the garden at some point disappeared. I think it was before the flood. That's just my thought. But my point is, she's calling it a garden. This is no garden. Yes, God has blessed us, and I'm glad for that. And I'm glad for the beauty that we see around us, the ocean over here, the green. I'm glad for that. But we have not been restored to the Garden of Eden yet. It is likely that keeping the Sabbath will result in additional benefits to planet Earth. Keeping the Sabbath, and in so doing, to keep the earth. Again, I'm just wanting you to see that I believe Revelation 13 is coming true. We're starting to hear the language by people that don't know anything about Revelation 13, or at least I don't think they understand it, speaking the same words, speaking just like the Bible said they would speak. Here's another project, another Green Sabbath project. This is a group that was actually started by a Jewish rabbi, I believe. I looked a little bit into this group, and that's the knowledge that I gained from it on their website. I might be wrong a little bit, but because I'm not sure, it was a little hard to follow, but that's what I believe it is, which is interesting. That's why they call it the Green Sabbath Project. And if this is a Jewish rabbi or Jewish teacher, then, even the Jews are starting to slip a little bit on their understanding of the Sabbath. I think that the Jewish people, the Jewish nation, when it comes to the Sunday observance, mandated worldwide, might slip into the same rut. And they'll say, oh, okay, yeah, sorry, we misunderstood. It's the New Testament Sabbath that we're supposed to follow. Because that's what the churches teach today, especially Catholics and Protestants. This gentleman says, take a weekly day of rest. Doesn't say the Sabbath. He just says a weekly day of rest. So he's not, even though he's Jew, he does not mention which day. It says, make it a real Sabbath for you and for earth. Don't drive, don't shop. There it is again. Why are they using the same words? Don't build. Take a walk, eat with friends, play, read with your kids. It's almost like they read the same script. Sing, meditate, celebrate contentment. So meditate, again, bringing spirituality into it. Green Sabbaths provide a recurring weekly greenhouse for incubating the required collective consciousness. That word scares me. I'll be honest. Anytime they say collective consciousness, that means that those who say, wait a minute, I don't want to join the collective, they're going to be the enemy. And we're already hearing that today. Those who say, wait a minute, the Constitution says I have freedom of conscience. And people are saying, no, you don't. This is not about freedom. This is about the collective. This is about the well-being of everybody. Now, I'm not trying to bring up, touchy issues. What I'm saying is that we're hearing similar language that's already grooming us and preparing us to think later on this idea of we must reject or put aside our own conscience for the collective conscience and willpower. Whether commemorated as a secular, spiritual, or religious act. You see how it involves everybody? So the Sunday, the false mark of the beast in the last days will not necessarily be religious. It may include religion, but I think it'll invite everyone, even secular-minded people. It says, whether commemorated as a secular, spiritual, or religious act, Green Sabbaths, properly practiced, offers a weekly investment in family and local community. So let me just go back before I go to this next slide. This Green Sabbath project, it's on the website. If you want to look it up, just Google Green Sabbath project, and then you can see there a little bit more about what they teach. But it does cause concern. when I read Revelation 13 and Daniel 7. And I start seeing that the future that the Bible predicted is coming true. Slowly, and we haven't seen the full effect yet, but we're definitely heading in that direction. I really believe this, sincerely. Let's look at a little bit about what it means to have liberty of conscience. According to Ellen White's book, The Great Controversy, which we're studying together or reading through together for Wednesday's prayer meetings. In page 564, she says this: the Constitution of the United States guarantees liberty of conscience. Nothing is dearer or more fundamental. How many of you have read the Constitution? Okay, if you haven't, please do. It's important for us to understand why it's important in our day, especially the amendments. But read the whole Constitution. It's very powerful, and it helps us understand the concepts that our forefathers had in preserving religious liberty. Pope Pius IX, in his encyclical letter of August 15, 1854, he said this: the absurd and erroneous doctrines or ravings in defense of liberty of conscience are a most pestilential error, a pest of all others most to be dreaded in a state. Does it sound like the Catholic Church likes us to have freedom of choice? At least in that day. They say they've changed recently. I have read articles that they put online now that we'll read a little bit more later. It says the same Pope in his encyclical letter of December 8th of 1864 anathemized or condemned those who assert the liberty of conscience and of religious worship, also all as such as maintain that the church may not employ force. So remember, for those of you who know the history, since Rome fell, right in the 5th century around there, the Catholic Church became very powerful in Europe. And they were dominant power in Europe. They actually ruled above the kings of Europe. Many of the kings were afraid of the papacy, and they did whatever the papacy asked them to do. So they were used to, for hundreds of years, they were accustomed to receiving full obedience from the kings and from the subjects. And this is why when America came to be, right around 1776, right, in that time period, when the Declaration of Independence took hold, when the Constitution was later formed a few years later, they hated the American idea, because the idea of America was we have certain unalienable rights given to us not by the church, not by the government, but by our Creator. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And of course that is expanded in the First Amendment that says Congress shall not establish any religion or the free exercise thereof. I'm not quoting it exactly perfectly, but you know what I'm talking about. Free speech, freedom of the press, the freedom to think as an individual, so important. Freedom and liberty of conscience. But yet, the church back in the 1800s says, no, we hate that. And to be fair, one of their reasons is because they say, if we give people too much freedom, they'll abuse it, and society will fall apart with immorality. That's one of the arguments that I've heard in some of their writings. God had the same problem. God gave us freedom. Can we abuse that freedom? We do it all the time. But He never took the freedom from us just because we could abuse it. He always gave us the freedom even to make mistakes. So if God gives us freedom to make mistakes and to do wrong, then who's the government to tell us what we can or can't do. They have no right. They have no right because they are not above God. And God honors liberty of conscience. The devil himself, when he was in heaven, he spread lies about God to a third of the angels, well, to all the angels. A third of the angels followed him. Did God say, nope, sorry, freedom of the speech is hate speech. We cannot talk. I'm not going to let you talk anymore. Did he say that to Satan? No. And Satan was indeed promoting hate speech. And God is wrong. God is, deceitful and so on and so forth. Even when Satan came to Adam and Eve, he presented them with lies. Did God say, hey, that's a lie. That's misinformation. I'm not going to allow that. Nope. God allowed freedom of speech even if it meant a little bit of chaos. So who is government to tell us what we can or can't say? Liberty of conscience in danger. Says Bishop O'Connor, religious liberty is merely endured until the opposite can be carried into effect without peril to the Catholic world. Endured. They're giving it to us now because they have to, not because they want to. The Archbishop of St. Louis once said, heresy and unbelief are crimes. And in Christian countries, as in Italy and Spain, for instance, remember they ruled Europe for a long time, especially Spain and Italy, very Catholic countries, and where the Catholic religion is an essential part of the law of the land. Remember, we were just talking about Matthew 24 and Revelation 13, how we have religious entities combined with political entities. And it says here, they were an essential part of the law of the land and are punished as other crimes. In Revelation 13, will be punished by not being able to buy or sell. And in the end, will be punished by even being threatened with the loss of life. Here's an interesting twist on this idea of religious, freedom of conscience. This Monsignor, I think I'm saying that right, Charles Pope, is currently a dean and pastor in the Archdiocese of Washington, D.C. By the way, this gentleman here also gives Bible studies at the White House. Just so you see. And he's Catholic. True respect for the conscience of others means affirming them when they are right and correcting them when they're wrong. I just want you to hear what he says. I'll try not to add my 2 cents. Conscience is true or false insofar as it agrees with or falls short of divine law. I agree with that. It says natural law and human law also, that is just and in conformity with divine law. Okay, let's see, that's the thing right there. Whose divine law? A false conscience judges what is unlawful to be lawful, and what is lawful to be unlawful. So he's kind of warning us, hey, yeah, you want to fight for freedom of conscience, but just beware, your conscience might be misleading you. Conscience is not independent of divine law, nor of just law and legitimate authority. Again, these things are not spoken nonchalant. This guy knows what he's saying. Conscience is not independent of divine law, nor of just law and legitimate authority. So what he's saying is that if the law of the land is correct, then your conscience no longer matters. You see how he's saying it, but in a very nice way. It is not private inspiration or interpretation. It is not a law unto itself. Conscience does not establish law. Okay, I can agree with that statement. The role of conscience is to apply what is taught by God. If he stopped there, I think I can agree with that. But then he goes on. Through natural law, what is taught by God, taught by natural law, taught by revelation, and the church. Now listen, I in an Adventist church, if you ever hear a pastor say, "We believe this because the church teaches it," you have my permission to leave. That's the wrong church. The church never says, "You believe something because we're telling you what is truth." The church should always say, "We believe something because thus saith the Lord." And it is up to you to study for yourselves to see if it's true. That's the freedom of conscience. Not the church. The aim of conscience cannot be to resist such law, but rather to receive and apply it. Now, again, this sounds very nice at the moment. But I believe these same arguments will be used when the mark of the beast will be enforced. They'll say, "Listen, we know your conscience says otherwise, but however, these are just laws for the good of the community, for the good of the earth, for the good of the whole planet. We must go along with these laws." Not only through the laws of the state, but also the laws of the church, the laws of nature, and so on. One thing that Biden said the other day that really worried me a little bit, he says, "This is not about freedom or personal choice. It's about protecting yourself and those around you. My job as president is to protect all Americans." Now that sounds good on the surface. But however, two things. First of all, freedom is very important. Patrick Henry said it best, "Give me liberty or give me death." Freedom is more important than even death. Because death comes no matter what happens, right? We're all going to die eventually. But freedom, once freedom dies, who's going to resurrect that? I wanted to correct President Biden as well when he says, "My job as president is to protect all Americans." I looked that up in the U.S. Constitution, and I put it here for you to read. This is the solemn oath that all presidents are to take when they receive when they place their hands on the Bible and take the oath of office. "I do solemnly swear or affirm that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States." Not your health. Your health is your business. Right? It has been for many centuries. We can go to doctors, we can choose doctors. That's not the point. The point is, he is there to protect freedom. That's what the president is supposed to do. Any president, not just Biden, but all presidents. All right, I'm going to read through some of these real quick and then we'll finish. I got about 2-3 minutes. Future events, written over 100 years ago by Ellen G. White. Now these are compiled in this little book called Last Day Events. And I encourage you to get that book or to download it on your phones if you don't have it and read through it. This is from, I believe it's chapter 35, and or at least it's page 125, at least you can look there. It says, "The Sunday movement is now making its way in darkness. The leaders are concealing the true issue." Could that be happening today? Well, we don't know because they're concealing it. But I believe they are. It says, "The leaders are concealing the true issues, and many who unite in the movement do not themselves see where the undercurrent is tending. They are working in blindness." So not all government officials or people in power understand where they're leading. They do not see if a Protestant government sacrifices the principles that have made them a free, independent nation, and through legislation brings into the Constitution principles that will propagate papal falsehood and papal delusions. They are plunging into the Roman horrors of the Dark Ages. This hasn't happened yet, but I believe we're heading in that direction. There are many, even those engaged in this movement for Sunday enforcement. Now remember, we just saw by several places, and there's more, that there are Sunday movements across the globe being pushed. Green Sabbath Project, the Green Earth thing, and there's another one called the Sunday Alliance in Europe. It's part of the, it's a Catholic union. Anyway, it's a long story, but look it up if you want. It's called the European Union Sunday Alliance. Look it up and you'll find out more about them. It says, so there are many of those engaged in this movement for Sunday enforcement who are blinded to the results which will follow this action. They do not see that they are striking directly against religious liberty. Those who are making an effort to change the Constitution, we've heard a lot about that recently, and secure a law enforcing Sunday observance, we haven't heard that yet, but I believe it's coming. Little realize that what will be the result. A crisis is just upon us. Page 129. When our nation shall so abjure the principles of its government as to enact a Sunday law, Protestantism will in this act join hands with popery, the same power that ruled Europe for over 1,200 years. Soon, the Sunday laws will be enforced. It hasn't happened yet, but we're looking into the future. And men in positions of trust will be embittered against this little handful of God's commandment-keeping people. Read Revelation 14. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and have the faith of Jesus. Political corruption, and again, Democrat, Republican, it does not matter. I'll be honest. Political corruption is everywhere. It says, is destroying the love of justice and regard for truth. And even in free America, rulers and legislators, in order to secure public favor, will yield to the popular demand for a law enforcing Sunday observance. Now, we haven't seen that yet, but we've already read how there's saying, hey, we got to stop. To save the earth, we got to keep a day of rest for us and for the earth. So it's not something that's out there that's not in existence. It is out there. It just hasn't been brought to the forefront to our legislators yet, but I believe it's coming. Satan puts his interpretation upon events, and they think, as he would have them, that the calamities which fill the land are the result of Sunday breaking. We just read that. They said if we don't keep this Sunday or a day of rest, we will continue seeing calamities, global warming, right? Climate change, all these things, the earthquakes, the tornadoes, the fires, all these things are because we're not allowing the world to rest. I'm not inventing this. They actually said this. You just read it. So Satan is the one actually destroying the earth, not global warming. Now, is he using that partly? I don't know. My point is that's not the issue. And that the observance of Sunday, that the enforcement of Sunday observance would greatly improve the morals of society. Remember they said pray, meditate, be with family, and so on. When Protestantism shall stretch her hand across the gulf to grasp the hand of the Roman power, when she shall reach over the abyss to clasp hands with spiritualism, which is just another word for witchcraft, when under the influence of this threefold union, our country shall repudiate every principle of its constitution as a Protestant and Republican government, and shall make provision for the propagation of papal falsehoods and delusions, then we may know that the time has come for the marvelous working of Satan and that the end is near. Well, praise the Lord. I hate to see deception. I hate to see people, divided and all these problems that we're having. But the one positive thing about it all is that it proves that the end is near. Jesus said there would be wars and rumors of wars. He said that there would be, nation against nations, kingdom against kingdom. And I can't find it right offhand here, but I'll maybe I got here. I just wanted to finish with just remembering in Matthew 24, he says, when you see these things happen, look up, for your redemption draws near. And in Romans 13:11, we'll finish with this. And that, knowing the time, we've looked into the future. We see what's happening and we see things taking shape. Knowing the time, that now it is high time to awake out of sleep. For now is our salvation nearer than when we believed. Now, I love this picture, this painting here, because when we think of all the hard times that are coming, we won't be able to buy or sell. We may even be threatened with jail and maybe even death. We're going to go through some difficult times. But it's at that time when we are weak, then we are strong, right? We are happy through tribulation because that drives us to the feet of Jesus. And I love this picture. It's just, because I feel like that a lot. I don't know about you folks, but I feel like that, just worn down. I'm tired. I'm just, I'm overwhelmed by it. And Jesus says, don't worry. In the world you will have tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. Come unto me, all you that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. So let us trust in him to guide us through these difficult times ahead. If we do, then our reward in heaven will be so worth it. What a precious day that will be. But first we must be faithful unto the end. Let's bow our heads. Father in heaven, we thank you for these warnings found in Scripture, Revelation 13 especially, as we see it coming to pass before our very eyes. There's still a lot of things that might happen in the near future that have not happened yet, but we see the road being prepared. We see the powers moving around the globe to institute the mark of the beast. The question is, Lord, will we as individuals be faithful to God, or will we obey man above God, above his commandments? Lord, give us the strength that we need, for we have none. Give us the faith that we need, for we have none. Give us the love and the forgiveness that we need for our enemies, for we have none. There is none good, no, not one, and all good gifts are from you. We need your character to be written on our hearts so that we can be a light in this world of darkness. In the name of Jesus I pray. Amen. Amen. Thank you for